So I had a number of people reach out to me and ask me if I could explain this whole virtual game card that was announced on the most recent Nintendo Direct. I will be honest, when I say a number, that number is 3, but still, I had planned on doing a reaction or my thoughts on the Direct anyway, so figured this would be a good opportunity to talk about both. But don't worry, I'm going to talk about the virtual game card first because I think that's probably the most significant thing, and probably the thing most people are interested in. And from everything that I've seen, I want to be clear, I am no virtual game card expert. I've just looked at quite a bit of stuff on this, and honestly, I think I'll be able to explain how it works, but I think I'm going to leave you with more questions than anything. But one specific question that honestly might make owning a Switch 2 a little bit more complicated. Anyway, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel grow and gives me a reason to not move to Wyoming and join a doomsday cult. Anyway, let's get back to this whole virtual game card thing. And let me say that at first it didn't really make a lot of sense to me because I have a few Switches actually, and I do use 2 or 3 of them. Not like all the time, because it'd be kind of weird. You need 3 Switches going, but most notably it's because I have a child. And for most of the Switch's life, me and my son both played our Switches, and so to not go broke, I had to allow him access to a lot of the games that I owned already. It really feels like buying duplicates of games. So I know it's possible to do this, and honestly, it's relatively simple. Usually your main Switch, the one that you kind of buy everything on, you put that as your secondary Switch, and then the other one, in this case my son's Switch, I put as the primary. And so whenever we were out and around or whatever, he would be able to have access to the games. All I would have to do is connect to the internet and I would have the same access. So being able to play your games in different consoles didn't really make sense to me, and why this was so important. Now I will say that this process does seem to be a little bit easier, maybe a little bit slower honestly than doing it the old-fashioned way, if you will. Although they never mentioned profiles, and that is a concern. And hopefully it really will work just like a game card, where it doesn't matter what profile you sign on under the other Switch, as long as that game works. That would be great, and hopefully that's the case, because that is the only kind of hang-up you have every now and then with the process that I just explained before. Sometimes some games wouldn't work under certain profiles, but honestly we even kind of figured that out, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And if it seems like I'm sort of crapping on this whole thing, don't worry, there is one major thing that I have to really just applaud Nintendo for, and that is thank you, Nintendo, for allowing me in the year of 2025 to share games with my children instead of having to buy multiple duplicate games. Maybe. I don't know, because they didn't bring up this whole profile thing. And this is where I'm most curious. You see, if I want to play Minecraft with my kids, can I just share the virtual game card to both of their Switches and then it'll still act like it's on my Switch and we can all play online together? Or is it literally like it turns the virtual game card into just one game and you can't do that? And it really also comes into play if the Nintendo Switch itself can be used under a different profile, because that I think matters the most, especially in a situation where you have a family or something like that. So aside from being able to take your virtual games and turn them into a virtual game card that you can transfer between your own Switches, there is also the ability to share a game with somebody who's on like your friends and family membership. And this is something I definitely want to try out. In fact, possibly with Trick, who's often commenting on this channel, one of the OGs, I'm going to try to put him on my friends and family membership and to see if I can share a game with him. Now, we've never met in person. He lives a state away. I don't know if it'll work like that. My biggest concern is that you would both have to be hooked up to the same internet, and that's why it wouldn't work. But they did mention this as a possibility, and it's a really weird thing where you can only share one game at a time for like 14 days. They didn't say if you could then just reshare that same game or what the whole deal with it is and why it's like that, because that seems odd. But regardless, this is where I'm the most concerned though, because it really made me start to wonder, like, why would you go through this? Like, what is the process? Who is that interested in this whole thing? And then it dawned on me, well, this is for the Switch too. So my big question, and the question I would ask you guys as well, when we buy our fancy new Switch 2s and we log in, we won't have access to our digital library that should be on our account in our from our Switch 1. And so we're gonna have to take every game that we want from our digital library from our Switch 1 and transfer it to our Switch 2. Because if that's the case, that's gonna be a pain in the butt, especially for somebody like me who has literally thousands of games. I think I have 1,035 in my digital library, which is a ton. And of course you wouldn't move every game over, that's just kind of ridiculous, and you could even look at it as an opportunity to sort of trim some fat, if you will. Then the other question that comes to mind is, what about cross-gen games? Like, what about the ones that can be both on the Switch 1 and Switch 2? Would they not share the same marketplace? I don't know. I don't know any of these questions, and that's the ones I'm more interested in. Maybe they're just being Nintendo and being weird and hey, this is this new thing you can do, and it's nothing more than that, and you don't need to do that. And when you get your Switch 2, you log into it, you'll have the same digital games in your library. They're all accessible. Honestly, I don't know, and I guess we're gonna find out in about a week. I'm sure they're gonna at least bring that up if you're gonna be able to do that. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts. That's how the whole thing works, and I know I left y'all with more questions than answers, but at its base, that is essentially how it works. And I will say, ultimately, I'm not going to really comment too much more on it, at least if it's a good or a bad thing, until I actually see this process in action, if you will, because right now, like I said, it's just kind of a mystery. Now, onto my thoughts on the Nintendo Direct. I am definitely not going to go too deep into it because I've already wasted a ton of this video time just talking about the whole virtual game card. I have to say this, at times, while watching the Direct, I was thinking, why are we doing this? Why are we having a Switch Direct right now? And why I say that is because it did seem at times they were trying to stretch. I mean, there was so many rhythm games that they covered, and then even that weird retro bullet hell. It's not a weird game, but it's just weird that they would spend that much time on it. Gladius, Salamander, whatever it's called. And then I noticed when they did the sizzle reel, there was actually some really interesting games in there, games that I would be more interested in, but they barely touched upon them. Most of the games, which I'm also really confused by, are due way after the Switch 2. And the reason why I was a little bit confused by that is because I assumed that this was going to be giving us momentum until the Switch 2, but a majority of these games are going to be cross-gen apparently. And so that did make me wonder exactly why they were even doing this. You know, they did bring up a couple games that ended up shadow dropping today, and honestly, they were pretty good games to an extent. And I'm going to give them some credit too, that they were priced really well. I did pick up Saga Frontier 2 Remastered, but it's only $30, and I'm really excited for it. It looks cool. Plan on reviewing that as soon as possible. Also, Rift of the Necromancer, or Necrodancer, sorry, that game was $14, I think. 14 or 15, and Disney Villains Cursed Cafe, which basically just was like coffee talk in a way, but even that game was relatively well priced. Not the worst shadow drops we've had, but again, they spent so much time talking about Metroid 4, but without giving a date. They spent a lot of time talking about Pokemon Z to A, again, not giving a date. And there was just instances like that that really made me curious. Now, things like Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remake, super hyped about that. That's going to be great. That Pac-Man game, I forgot the name of it. I don't have any of that information in front of me right now. I was mainly focused on the whole virtual game card thing, but that Pac-Man game looks awesome. I'm super excited for that. By the way, I never thought I would say in the year 2025, I am super excited for the new Pac-Man game. But no, it really does look cool. If you haven't checked out the Direct, definitely check that out. I'll try to actually, in the description or in the comment section, put the name of the game. Like I said, I just don't have it on me right now. But anyway, I'm curious, what was your thoughts on the Direct in general? What grade would you give it? For me personally, I'd give it a C. I just felt like it was a little bit confused. And some of the stuff that they talked about, I didn't feel like they needed to. And then some of the stuff they could have went into more detail, they didn't. By the way, also, we got to do a little bit of something about these anti-woke people. Don't get me wrong, I think some of it has merit, but just in this one scenario, down in the comment section of the Nintendo presentation, I saw somebody who said they just lost a huge Nintendo fan. I can't believe that they would make Metroid DEI, and going into how she's a woman and stuff. I'm like, bro, you are never a fan if you didn't know that Samus was a woman. Like, get your crap together, son. But anyway, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the Direct, and what games are you excited for? Did you do any pre-orders? Pick up any of the Shadow Drop games? I don't know, anything and everything down in that comment section. It's much appreciated. I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.